name is Hjalte. I will be talking about user engagement today. So not so much about the classical climate science, but more about what we do afterwards when we actually want to get it out into the real world. And I will do that in relation to this CLIM4cities project that I will also say a little bit about, just to give you the frame. Yes, first of all, even though I'm the one talking, we were a team doing this user engagement. So I will just briefly mention my two colleagues, Julie and Mark, who are the core team around the Danish Climate Atlas. And this work was very much done in collaboration with them, since we are connecting this to what we already have. So for those of you who doesn't know the Danish Climate Atlas, it's the main source of information that DMI provides for use in climate adaptation in a Danish context. It has been running for almost 5 years now, and there's a lot of there's a large frame around that also for user engagement. So we are building on that in this project. Yes. So what is the CLIM4cities project about? It's about urban heat island. So the effect that urban areas are warming up faster than surrounding areas, and how to actually quantify that. So the idea is that if you look at something based on satellite products, it has a certain resolution. This is an example from Lisbon, from the Portuguese partners we have in the project. And with machine learning, you can resolve that much better based on features of the urban landscape that have a certain effect of this urban heat island. So dense urban areas will have a warmer effect, green areas will have a cooling effect, and you can use this information along with machine learning models and satellite products and local observations to have a much better and finer product that can be used in planning and contingency management. So that's the overall purpose of CLIM4cities. In this particular project, we are focusing on the 4 largest cities of Denmark and surrounding areas to get a baseline on what it is outside of the cities. And we are developing a product for these 4 cities, as well as a methodology for how can this work in a Danish context and a Northern European context. But exactly how the end product should look was not well defined when we started the project, because it was actually set from the beginning that we should try to best possible meet user needs. So this is from the project description. And one place we are engaging with users is in the beginning of the project, where we are really reaching out to figure out, okay, who are supposed to pick up this project in the end and what are their needs? How can we best possible tailor the product that we are developing so it will actually have an impact out in real life? This is what I will be talking about primarily today, because this process has been running already, and we have had a couple of workshops and dialogues with a lot of users around how to best do this. Later in the project, we will also have we will return to the same users, possibly more users, and get feedback on the actual product that we're developing. And we will get some feedback on if it actually meets the needs that were discussed in the beginning. We're not there yet. It will come this winter sometime. But for now, we will talk about how to actually best possible get into this user needs category and pull out the information we need in order to enhance what we are doing in the project. So I will say a lot of obvious things today, but that's not the same as it's easy to do. But when you start this user engagement, the first thing you need to be aware of is what is the goal of doing it. Because obviously talking to users in its own is engagement, but it's not necessarily productive. So need to be very aware of why are we engaging with the users? What do we need to get out of the engagement? And in this particular case where it's in a project, what can the engagement actually alter on the project? Because you have to be very clear about when you engage with users, they are spending time on you, they're investing time in you, and you need to be very open and honest about, okay, what can they actually change in what we're doing, so it will be better for them in the end. So asking all these questions to yourself and trying to best possible answer them is a very good start of designing a user engagement process, right? Next part is we talked about workshops. It's always good to get close to people, and in that process, you want to have the right people in the room. Again, it sounds obvious, but it's not always the case. So before we actually got to the point where we had physical workshops with people, we had a long process where we reached out to, in the first place, the 4 municipalities or the 4 cities that were included in the project, saying, hey, we are developing this project. Who in your organization in the end would probably pick this up and could be interested in coming and discussing this with us. And based on that, we reached further out in existing networks we have within climate adaptation people and communities, saying, okay, who's already started to work with Urban Heat Island and who can see a problem, who is interested in come and discuss it with us. So in the end, we really tried to get people in the room that already were aware of Urban Heat Island as a problem and were starting to discuss, okay, how can we actually address this in a practical manner when we are doing planning in the cities? Which led to, we had quite a few municipal planners. It seemed, we figured out along the way that the regions of Denmark, they are also doing planning on this. So they were invited as well and showed up. There was quite a few researchers from different universities in Denmark. The Environmental Protection Agency had a keen interest in this because they have a responsibility for climate adaptation as such in Denmark. And then we had a green think tank on board who's been very much involved in trying to synthesize how is climate adaptation and climate adaptation plans going in Denmark, and what should be the next focus. And they were also very interested in being included in this to see, okay, this when the next round of adaptation plans are supposed to be made within the next couple of years, what themes not already covered could be very interested to get included many places. So in that respect, a lot of the effort actually spent on the user engagement was spent on securing that we got the right people in the room to talk to before we actually got to pose the questions and have the discussions. Which I think is time well spent in the sense that it makes the conversations you have much more enlightening, because people will actually have a stand on this and they will beforehand have an opinion about stuff and have an idea about how this fits into how they work. So the next thing is about how do we dissolve user needs, because one could get to the point where you just ask, what would you actually like? What's your needs? And then people will start babbling about and they want everything. That's usually the case when you ask them open like this. So this is not what we did. Instead, we designed a process where we wanted to have people describe how they want to work with this problem in as much detail as they felt like. Because in that, then they much better describe the actual data needs and their capabilities of actually using data in respect to what resolution could actually be used in practice, and what temporal resolution, or is it static maps or whatever. There's many ways you can present Urban Heat Island products and we wanted to understand the processes where they see Urban Heat Island being worked with within the municipalities in order to best possible design products that actually supports that. In practice, we have this. It's in Danish. That's another clear message. User engagement, it's much easier in people's native language. So obviously we ran the process in Danish, but I translated the important messages here. So these are some fact sheets that people could fill out by pen and paper, right? So it's about describing a climate information need. Okay, what kind of information do we need to do something? And they are asked to design to describe which role are they filling out in the municipality. So they did this in groups. So it didn't necessarily be their own role, but a role they could see be present out there in reality. which kind of information did they need, which is and they are really asked to, okay, at what level, what detail level, what can you actually work with? And in the end, this to do, what is the actual goal that they are trying to solve, where this data should fit in, so we can also get a better understanding how what they're actually trying to achieve and how the data fits in, because then when we start to synthesize this, which we already obviously did, we had a lot of these coming in, and we tried to describe different roles and how they could use data, and in turn, what does that mean for the project and the product we are developing? And this is on purpose so small that you really shouldn't try to sit and read it right now. You will get the slides, and you're welcome to read it afterwards, the different roles. But this is just to say, okay, this is a first synthesis where we try to synthesize similar roles between these sheets and how they actually will work with it. And the first conclusion here is that these dialogues clearly manifested there is a demand for better high-resolution urban heat island models, because it is a problem, and we know there is small-scale differences that they really want to pick up in order to be able to better see where in the cities they have the hugest problems, and if they are to design solutions that they can actually be targeted against these areas. Afterwards, we did another round of synthesization across the different roles to really say, okay, if we focus on the outcome of the project, how can we actually see that? And it came up with these 4 headlines. So resolution, that at least in a Danish context, a lot of planning data is available in extremely high resolution. So we are talking cadastral level, and we have a surface model in 40 centimeter resolution. So they can really work with GIS information in extremely high resolution. So the user need is not the limitation here. It's really the technical requirements that then come up. What can we actually make from a technical point of view? How much data do we have available, and how fine a resolution can we then get into? That is the limitation here. With respect to data format, there was a strong wish to have data that can seamlessly go into the GIS platforms they are currently working with. And as, at least for now, it's primarily planning purposes they want to use with this. The contingency part also being mentioned, but on a longer scale, they don't see it as a huge problem right now, because if they, from a planning perspective, know which parts of the cities that are most vulnerable to this, then from a contingency purpose, they will also have an idea about where to put in when things actually happen. So in the first place, having static maps that can work in a GIS environment and help them plan is a huge step. Then there's a very strong wish to actually do scenarios analysis. If we change something, if we put more greening into an area, if we change the climate, look into the future. So the whole running scenarios was a strong wish. And for that, the machine learning model developed within the project. There was a strong wish to have that documented and delivered in a form where it can actually be used for such purposes. And then the last one about coverage. So our project focused on the 4 largest cities in Denmark. Everyone we talked to so far expect there is an urban heat island effect in these 4 cities because they have a size where it makes sense. And a lot of the questions we got was, okay, but how small cities will actually have an effect that is something that we should take into account. So there's a strong wish for doing something further than what the project is doing, and focusing on, okay, for how small cities can we actually expect will have an effect of this. So we have an idea that's very much on the regional planners. They want to say, okay, we support all the smaller municipalities as well, and we can help them out figuring out if this is something they should actually take into account. This is as such beyond the CLIM4cities project. Although depending on how these products turns out, there are smaller cities around some of the larger cities that can probably help us answer some of these questions, but we can't promise that because it was not the purpose of the project. So, in conclusion, if we talk about user engagement, be aware of why you're doing it, because that's always the first best step you can take. Then when you know what you want to get out of it and why you want to do it, then make an effort to convince the right people to get to your workshop or whatever you design, because it will greatly enhance the engagement you actually have, because you can get the right answers for what you want to be wise about. In order to do that, it's also worthwhile thinking very much about how you ask questions, because if you ask them too direct or too openly, people tend to want everything, and in the best and highest resolution when we're talking data, even though that might not actually be necessary for answering the questions they need to answer. So that's an important lesson as well to take on. And then the whole synthesization of result is very important, in the sense that if you want to, you get a lot of information out of a user engagement process, and you somehow need to get them back to the question that you wanted to answer in the first place. So you need to find a way to synthesize them, and the more aware you are of this from the beginning, the easier it is to actually also design a process that helps you get in that right direction. So in that respect, it's very good to have an idea about how you want to synthesize the results before you actually get in the data from the users. And then the last one is really this: be open to conclusions that you cannot meet. For instance, for our case, this with smaller cities, because it's a very nice need to have demonstrated, because you can use that as a vehicle in later projects and try to convince others to fund that you actually then take the models from a project like this and spread it out over the whole country in order to help also smaller cities. Yes, so that was, in not so short, what I had on the menu today, and now I'm open for questions.